my name is Karen King, the principal of Little Bay Primary and Infant School here in Westmoreland. Been here for the last 2 years, so we're working here in the same capacity of being a principal for 2 years. When we realized that we were instructed that school supposed to be closed, what we did, we met as a staff with the stakeholders, with the community members, with the parents to ensure that we account for all our children. Now, the great thing about this is we already put some things in place prior to the COVID situation. Now, when we realize that there are some students, however, who do not have internet access at home, and then what we decide that we'll have to do is try and find a way to ensure that there is equity in the system and that we can account for all our children. What we did is set up a printing system which the regional office in Region 4 helped to coordinate also with our regional director and stakeholders, Rockhouse, and the other entities. So we work together on this project. So we print the materials, take them from Montego Bay to Westmoreland. Sometimes we're not for them, sometimes I go in and I take them, and then the teachers will email the work, we get them print, and then once we get them print, we take them to the school, create a drop-off and a pick-up point, and then we sort the documents out, staple them together, use the register, account for all the children, and then from there what I'll do is go through the communities that are in a more remote location and then ensure that all the children receive printed materials that they wouldn't be able to access under normal situation.
Panel! Mr. King!
He's doing a good job.
I like.
Grateful for everything that he's doing to my kids.
For the week, we deliver to about 6 communities.
Where are you good? What Mr. King is doing for the kids?
Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
King.
Yes, sir.
You don't mind me saying, but you look like a student.
I'm used to that, sir. I get that every day.
It's very good to see young people
Yes,
in leadership positions in education, but particularly even more pleasing is a young man as a principal
Yes,
of a school, but in the rural parts of Jamaica. The service that you're giving, where you're riding a bike again to transport papers and collect papers from students. That's incredible, and it shows your dedication to the profession, your dedication to your students, your own dedication as a citizen in a time of crisis.
Very proud of what you're doing, and I want to commend you. We want to say how very proud we are of what you do, how very grateful we are as a nation for what you do, and encourage you to continue.
Yes, sir.
I want to make my own contribution to what you're doing as a sign of support for your innovativeness and your commitment. We believe that what you're doing is a positive sign for Jamaica.
Thank you, Mr. King.
I continue to enrich the minds of our young people because knowledge is power. No matter the avenue we must use.
We are building forward.
Together.
Mrs. Phipps, how are you?
My friend,
Good to see you. How is your modality working, and exactly what is your modality of teaching? You're going around putting the lessons on chalkboards in communities.
What happened is, my intention was to engage them in the teaching and learning. I said to myself, if I have 2 hours per day, if I have 2 hours, because when I saw them running up and down and, gallivanting, I was like, no, this can't be. No, this is our future. Oh, no, not at all. And we don't know how long COVID is going to be here. Time is going to pass, and what they missed this year, next year is something new and more. You can't get to 2 and 3 and understand that concept properly if you don't actually understand 1. So we said, then definitely we have to try and hold them even now, because education is important.
We have to figure out how to get back to school. Because this location for the last 6 or 7 months would have set us back significantly. It would have widened the already wide gap that exists in the society in terms of educational outcomes. Your effort is laudable, and we should give you the support. I have a few tokens here that I believe could assist in your job. I'm going to give you a little support, a small token that you can use to move about and by your chalk and I don't know, you put up the chalkboards or you just paint a notice board on the wall?
We paint, put up, when we cannot find any space, we have to put up one. But when we ask, there's a small wall and we ask and get it, then we will just paint that.
Well, you can get some paint there.
Yes, sir.
And I'm giving you a little tablet here. All right, so you say you're not technologically savvy, but
I'll have to get it.
But you will catch on to it very quickly. And one for your daughter. All right, and then we all have to do a little social distance.
Yes,
So.
yes, going back to my car.
Here you go.
And of course. All right, and thank you. Good to meet you.
Yes, sir.
All right, keep up the good work. I have currently 600 devices which I'm giving out to all the students registered in schools in this constituency, and then I will seek to go wider afield to other constituencies and other schools as the devices become available. Even after the pandemic, devices such as these will be critical for your learning. So it's not just for the pandemic. We're using this as an opportunity to ensure that every Jamaican child can participate in the digital age with a device. I consider this now the book and pencil of learning. Every Jamaican child must have a device, whether it is a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. This is the way of the future.
Today I can boast and I can say that the grade 6 students are now all owners of a tablet, and I can also say that the grade 4s are now also owners of devices, and for that we are very grateful. And this means that we are able now to reach our children more, and they are able to log on and to be involved in the online classes that we will have.
We were happy to receive 27 devices, which comprised of laptops and tablets. And we want to thank the Prime Minister again and the Member of Parliament through his Positive Jamaica Foundation. And we're happy to have this in this injection in our institution.
I just want to thank Most Honorable Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister of Jamaica, for giving us these tablets to our school and every children that we can participate in our lessons at school, even with COVID or not COVID.
At my home, it's only 2 devices. My brother and my mother my mother do online work and my brother do online school. It was only 2 devices, and we have to take turns. So it was very hard. So the laptop which I received from the Prime Minister, it's adjusted me to the new normal.
I've made it part of my personal commitment to education to assist in mobilizing resources, not public resources now, private resources, to provide some of these schools that are in areas where we well know and understand the economic challenges that the population in these areas would face. Through my foundation, I am going to give you 30 devices, and they will be given to students at various grades. So you are going to move very rapidly from having 80 kids with devices to now having 120 with devices. So you're moving up. And that's how it is. That's what we have to do. It's incremental steps as a country, but as they say, every mickle make a muckle.
is Karen King, the principal of Little Bay Primary and Infant School here in Westmoreland. Been here for the last 2 years. So we're working here in the same capacity of being a principal for 2 years. When we realized that we were instructed that school supposed to be closed, what we did, we met as a staff with the stakeholders, with the community members, with the parents to ensure that we account for all our children. Now, the great thing about this is we already put some things in place prior to the COVID situation. Now, when we realize that there are some students, however, who do not have internet access at home, and then what we decide that we'll have to do is try and find a way to ensure that there's equity in the system and that we can account for all our children. What we did is set up a printing system which the regional office in Region 4 helped to coordinate also with our regional director and stakeholders, Rock House, and the other entities. So we work together on this project. So we print the materials, take them from Montego Bay to Westmoreland. Sometimes we're nuts for them, sometimes I go in and I take them, and then the teachers will email the work, we get them print, and then once we get them print, we take them to the school, create a drop-off and a pick-up point, and then we sort the documents out, staple them together, use the register, account for all the children, and then from there what I'll do is go through the communities that are in a more remote location and then ensure that all the children receive printed materials that they wouldn't be able to access under normal situation.
Panel. Mr. King.
He's doing a good job.
Good job. I like.
Grateful for everything that he's doing to my kids.
For the week, we deliver to about 6 communities.
Where is this good? What Mr. King is doing for the kids?
Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
King.
Yes, sir.
You don't mind me saying, but you look like a student.
Oh, I'm used to that, sir. I get that every day.
That's very good to see young people
Yes,
in leadership positions in education, but particularly even more pleasing is a young man as a principal of a school, but in the rural parts of Jamaica. The service that you're giving, where you're riding a bike again to transport papers and collect papers from students. That's incredible, and it shows your dedication to the profession, your dedication to your students, your own dedication as a citizen in a time of crisis.
Very proud of what you're doing, and I want to commend you. We want to say how very proud we are of what you do, how very grateful we are as a nation for what you do, and encourage you to continue.
Yes, sir.
I want to make my own contribution to what you're doing as a sign of support for your innovativeness and your commitment. We believe that what you're doing is a positive sign for Jamaica.
Thank you, Mr. King.
I continue to enrich the minds of our young people because knowledge is power. No matter the avenue we must use.
We are building forward.
Together.
Mrs. Phipps, how are you?
My privilege.
Good to see you. How is your modality working, and exactly what is your modality of teaching? You're going around putting the lessons on chalkboards in communities.
What happened is, my intention was to engage them in the teaching and learning. I said to myself, if I have 2 hours per day, if I have 2 hours, because when I saw them running up and down and, gallivanting, I was like, no, this can't be. No, this is our future. Oh, no, not at all. And we don't know how long COVID is going to be here. Time is going to pass. And what they missed this year, next year is something new and more. You can't get to 2 and 3 and understand that concept properly if you don't actually understand 1. So we said, then definitely we have to try and hold them even now, because education is important.
We have to figure out how to get back to school. Because this location for the last 6 or 7 months would have set us back significantly. It would have widened the already wide gap that exists in the society in terms of educational outcomes. Your effort is laudable, and we should give you the support. I have a few tokens here that I believe could assist in your job. I'm going to give you a little support. It's a small token that you can use to move about and buy your chalk and I don't know, you put up the chalkboards, or you just paint a notice board on the wall?
We paint, put up, when we cannot find any space, we have to put up one. But when we ask, there's a small wall, and we ask and get it, then we will just paint that.
Well, you can get some paint there.
Yes, sir.
And I'm giving you a little tablet here. Alright, so you say you're not technologically savvy, but
I'll have to get it.
But you will catch on to it very quickly. And one for your daughter. Alright, and then we all have to do a little social distance.
Yes,
so.
yes, going back to my car.
Here you go.
And of course. Alright, and thank you. Good to meet you. Alright, keep up the good work. I have currently 600 devices which I'm giving out to all the students registered in schools in this constituency, and then I will seek to go wider afield to other constituencies and other schools as the devices become available. Even after the pandemic, devices such as these will be critical for your learning. So it's not just for the pandemic. We're using this as an opportunity to ensure that every Jamaican child can participate in the digital age with a device. I consider this now the book and pencil of learning. Every Jamaican child must have a device, whether it is a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. This is the way of the future.
Today I can boast and I can say that the grade 6 students are now all owners of a tablet, and I can also say that the grade 4s are now also owners of devices, and for that we are very grateful. And this means that we are able now to reach our children more, and they are able to log on and to be involved in the online classes that we will have.
We were happy to receive 27 devices, which comprised of laptops and tablets. And we want to thank the Prime Minister again and the Member of Parliament through his Positive Jamaica Foundation. And we're happy to have this in this injection in our institution.
I just want to thank Most Honorable Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister of Jamaica, for giving us these tablets to our school and every children that we can participate in our lessons at school, even with COVID or not COVID.
At my home, it's only 2 devices. My brother and my mother my mother do online work and my brother do online school. It was only 2 devices, and we have to take turns. So it was very hard. So the laptop which I received from the Prime Minister, it's adjusted me to the new normal.
I've made it part of my personal commitment to education to assist in mobilizing resources, not public resources, now private resources, to provide some of these schools that are in areas where we well know and understand the economic challenges that the population in these areas would face. Through my foundation, I am going to give you 30 devices, and they will be given to students at various grades. So you are going to move very rapidly from having 80 kids with devices to now having 120 with devices. So you're moving up. And that's how it is. That's what we have to do. It's incremental steps as a country. But as they say, every mickle make a muckle.
is Karen King, the principal of Little Bay Primary and Infant School here in Westmoreland. Been here for the last 2 years. We're working here in the same capacity of being a principal for 2 years. When we realized that we were instructed that school supposed to be closed, what we did, we met as a staff with the stakeholders, with the community members, with the parents to ensure that we account for all our children. Now, the great thing about this is we already put some things in place prior to the COVID situation. Now, when we realize that there are some students, however, who do not have internet access at home, and then what we decide that we'll have to do is try and find a way to ensure that there is equity in the system and that we can account for all our children. What we did is set up a printing system which the regional office in Region 4 helped to coordinate also with our regional director and stakeholders, Rock House, and the other entities. So we work together on this project. So we print the materials, take them from Montego Bay to Westmoreland. Sometimes we're not for them, sometimes I go in and I take them, and then the teachers will email the work, we get them print, and then once we get them print, we take them to the school, create a drop-off and a pick-up point, and then we sort the documents out, staple them together, use the register, account for all the children, and then from there what I'll do is go through the communities that are in a more remote location and then ensure that all the children receive printed materials that they wouldn't be able to access under normal situation.
Panel. Mr. King.
He's doing a good job.
Good job. I like.
Grateful for everything that he's doing to my kids.
For the week, we deliver to about 6 communities.
Where are you exposed? What Mr. King is doing for the kids?
Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
King,
Yes, sir.
you don't mind me saying, but you look like a student.
I'm used to that, sir. I get that every day.
That's very good to see young people
Yes,
in
sir.
leadership positions in education, but particularly even more pleasing is a young man as a principal
Yes,
of a school, but in the rural parts of Jamaica. The service that you're giving, where you're riding a bike again to transport papers and collect papers from students. That's incredible, and it shows your dedication to the profession, your dedication to your students, your own dedication as a citizen in a time of crisis.
Very proud of what you're doing, and I want to commend you. We want to say how very proud we are of what you do, how very grateful we are as a nation for what you do, and encourage you to continue.
Yes, sir.
I want to make my own contribution to what you're doing as a sign of support for your innovativeness and your commitment. We believe that what you're doing is a positive sign for Jamaica.
Thank you, Mr. King.
I continue to enrich the minds of our young people because knowledge is power. No matter the avenue we must use.
We are building forward.
Together.
Mrs. Phipps, how are you?
My fabulous.
Good to see you. You know, how is your modality working, and exactly what is your modality of teaching? You're going around putting the lessons on chalkboards in communities.
What happened is, my intention was to engage them in the teaching and learning. I said to myself, if I have 2 hours per day, if I have 2 hours, because when I saw them running up and down and, gallivanting, I was like, no, this can't be. No, this is our future. Oh, no, not at all. And we don't know how long COVID is going to be here. Time is going to pass. And what they missed this year, next year is something new and more. You can't get to 2 and 3 and understand that concept properly if you don't actually understand 1. So we said, then definitely we have to try and hold them even now, because education is important.
We have to figure out how to get back to school. Because this location for the last 6 or 7 months would have set us back significantly. It would have widened the already wide gap that exists in the society in terms of educational outcomes. Your effort is laudable, and we should give you the support. I have a few tokens here that I believe could assist in your job. I'm going to give you a little support. It's a small token that you can use to move about and buy your chalk and And I don't know, you put up the chalkboards, or you just paint a notice board on the wall?
We paint, put up, when we cannot find any space, we have to put up one. But when we ask, there's a smooth wall, and we ask and get it, then we would just paint that.
Well, you can get some paint there.
Yes, sir.
And I'm giving you a little tablet here. All right, so you say you're not technologically savvy, but
I'll have to get it.
But you will catch on to it very quickly. And one for your daughter. All right, and then we all have to do a little social distance.
Yes.
So
Yes.
It's going back to my paw.
Here you go.
and of course. All right, and thank you. Good to meet you. All right, keep up the good work. I have currently 600 devices which I'm giving out to all the students registered in schools in this constituency, and then I will seek to go wider afield to other constituencies and other schools as the devices become available. Even after the pandemic, devices such as these will be critical for your learning. So it's not just for the pandemic. We're using this as an opportunity to ensure that every Jamaican child can participate in the digital age with a device. I consider this now the book and pencil of learning. Every Jamaican child must have a device, whether it is a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. This is the way of the future.
Today I can boast and I can say that the grade 6 students are now all owners of a tablet, and I can also say that the grade 4s are now also owners of devices, and for that we are very grateful. And this means that we are able now to reach our children more, and they are able to log on and to be involved in the online classes that we will have.
We were happy to receive 27 devices, which comprised of laptops and tablets. And we want to thank the Prime Minister again and the Member of Parliament through his Positive Jamaica Foundation. And we're happy to have this in this injection in our institution.
I just want to thank Most Honorable Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister of Jamaica, for giving us these tablets to our school and every children that we can participate in our lessons at school, even if COVID or not COVID.
At my home, it's only 2 devices. My brother and my mother my mother do online work and my brother do online school. It was only 2 devices, and we have to take turns. So it was very hard. So the laptop which I received from the Prime Minister, it's adjusted me to the new normal.
I've made it part of my personal commitment to education to assist in mobilizing resources, not public resources, now private resources, to provide some of these schools that are in areas where we well know and understand the economic challenges that the population in these areas would face. Through my foundation, I am going to give you 30 devices, and they will be given to students at various grades. So you are going to move very rapidly from having 80 kids with devices to now having 120 with devices. So you're moving up. And that's how it is. That's what we have to do. It's incremental steps as a country, but as they say, every mickle make a muckle.
Hi, my name is Karen King, the principal of Little Bay Primary and Infant School here in West.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this virtual town hall on vaccine sensitization for the education sector. A very critical discussion we'll have this afternoon, led, of course, by the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Thank you so much for joining us from the banquet hall here at Jamaica House in Kingston, Jamaica. I'm Naomi Francis. With us this afternoon to begin this discussion, we have, of course, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, along with the Minister of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Fayval Williams. Joining us on our virtual platform on Zoom, we have the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan. He is the Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Also on our virtual platform, Dr. Grace McLean, the Permanent Secretary Acting in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Kassan Carr, the Chief Education Officer Acting, joins us here. I beg your pardon. Dr. Kassan Troop, the Chief Education Officer Acting at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, joins us, as well as Dr. Melody Ennis, the Director of Family and Health Services at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. On our Zoom platform, we have Mrs. Rosalie Gage Gray, the Executive Director of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, along with Kesia Carr, the Executive Director of the National Parenting Support Commission, and Terry Thomas Gale, the Deputy CEO for exams at the Ministry of Education. Thank you all so much for joining us on our virtual platform and here, of course, at the Office of the Prime Minister. We also have an audience with us live on PBCJ, JIS, Nationwide Radio, and of course online on the Prime Minister's social media pages, and of course on the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information's social media pages. A very critical discussion that we must have, but we must all start first with prayer, and so I invite Reverend, Bishop Dr. Everton Thomas, OD, to start us off with prayer. Bishop Thomas.
Thank you, Ms. Francis. I'm unable to turn my camera on, but I will go ahead and pray nonetheless. To the Prime Minister, the Minister of Education, and all other officials gathered for this very special meeting today, grace and peace. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love and your mercies. We give you thanks today because indeed you are a good God. And Father, even on a bad day, you are a good God. And so we've learned that in life, we are either in a storm, coming out of a storm, or going into a storm. And Lord, the storm of coronavirus, the COVID-19 storm, is still with us in June 2021. But we give you thanks because your word instructs us that in everything we should thank you, in the good times and the bad times. And yet, Lord, as we try to navigate through this storm, we pray that you will help us with the challenges that we face. Many are dealing with severe stress, the anxiety that has been brought on by this pandemic, fear of the unknown, fear of the present, fear of the future. But God, we thank you and we pray that you will help us through this time as we apply your word that says, lean not to our own understanding, but in all our ways, we should acknowledge you and you will direct our paths. And so we thank you for this gathering today. Those who are gathered face to face and virtually, I pray for the success of this initiative. I pray, Father, that you will continue to bless the Prime Minister and those who are seeking to mitigate the negative effects of these times. We give you thanks and we bless your holy name as we pray in your name. Amen. Amen. In Jesus' name.
We want to go back to school. We miss seeing our teachers and our friends. We need more schools to reopen. But in order for us to go back, everyone has to play their part. Prevent community spread by wearing your mask, washing your hands, and sanitizing as often as you can. Schools won't reopen unless the community is following all safety measures. Face-to-face learning for all schools is what the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information hopes to achieve soon. So do your part. Let's send the kids back into the classroom. Every child can learn. Every child must learn.
Thank you indeed. Every child can learn, every child must learn, and very important from that video that there's great anticipation, not just from the students, but certainly from parents who certainly are trying to navigate these times, especially to deal with their children's education. So thank you so much, Bishop Thomas, for your prayer, and certainly words coming from our student a while ago on the video saying we really want to get back to school. Well, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Education certainly want to get you back there, but very safely. Let's then do the welcome in terms of what we're here about and looking at vaccination in this time of COVID. Let's then invite the Permanent Secretary acting in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Grace McLean, to do the official welcome. Dr. McLean, online.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Ms. Francis. I am happy to welcome you all this afternoon to our town hall session, which will be focusing on the vaccination program for our educators, as well as our exit examinations. First, let me acknowledge and welcome members of our distinguished panel. With us this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, of course, and our boys and girls, we have the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister. The Honorable Fayval Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. The Honorable Robert Nestor Morgan, our Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. We also have our Acting Chief Education Officer, Dr. Casson Troop, as well as Mrs. Terrian Thomas Gale, our Deputy Chief Education Officer, who is responsible for examinations. Moving on to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, let's welcome Dr. Melody Ennis, our Director of Family Health Services in that ministry. We also have joining us Ms. Kesia Carr, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Parenting Support Commission. And also Mrs. Rosalie Gage-Gray, our Chief Executive Officer of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, because we want to make sure, and our students, that we provide as much information as possible, we also have joining us as resource persons, Dr. Wayne Wesley, the Chief Executive Officer and Registrar of the Caribbean Examinations Council, as well as Dr. Nicole Manning, the Director of Operations. Also, Mrs. Marva Duncanson, the Country Manager for City and Guilds, and Mrs. Marva White, Director of Examinations for the NCTVET, the body responsible for the National Vocational Qualifications of Jamaica certification. And of course, a very special welcome to our able moderator. Our students, our teachers, our parents, and other stakeholders who are here in the virtual space this afternoon, we welcome you. We are happy to be able to provide you with information and to clarify any areas of concern you may have about the continuing vaccination program for the education sector workers, as well as to ensure that you have all the information required for our national exit examinations. And here we speak about our CAPE exams, our CSEC exams. We speak about the National Vocational Qualification, the Caribbean Vocational Qualification, and of course, our City and Guilds examination. And of course, these are at the secondary level. So we look forward to having excellent discussion, and we know that this evening will prove to be very rewarding as we edge closer to ensuring that we restore some normalcy to the education of our children. Thank you.
To change the education system.
Bridging the digital divide is crucial.
The government of Jamaica, through the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, has been utilizing technology to enrich and improve the educational levels of its students and move towards a fully connected and knowledge-based society.
We have to protect and nurture our children. It is important to keep our youth engaged.
Thank you very much. Despite the challenges,
improving the educational outcomes is our #1 priority.
Minister is entirely right. Improving educational outcomes for our students to increase the knowledge level in the society is a #1 priority. Thank you so much. Let's now go to the Chief Education Officer Acting, Dr. Kassan Troop, who is here with us at Jamaica House, who will bring some opening remarks. Dr. Troop.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to take this opportunity, Naomi, to just remind our stakeholders that the Ministry of Education is in the recovery stage of our Education in Emergencies program. And this stage requires all our stakeholders to be working in concert to ensure that our students can recover, to make sure that they can experience the success that they deserve. I want to use this opportunity to assure our stakeholders that we are doing our endeavor best to pull the expertise of our technocrats, our teachers, our principals, our education officers, the leaders of our agencies, our National College for Educational Leadership, our Jamaica Teaching Council, our National Education Inspectorate, and all our educational consultants. We are pulling their expertise together to ensure that we, the Jamaican education system, can recover smarter and stronger in pursuit of excellence for all our boys and girls. I want to encourage our parents, do not give up. Trust us, we will continue to work with you to make sure we can get our boys and girls back on their learning program. I thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Troop. Always passionate about our education process and, of course, our students and ensuring that they get the best education possible. You know, yesterday, in the midst of all the emergencies that we've had to do, the protocols that we've had to implement, we had some good news. We celebrated the lowest rate for the day in terms of the lowest positivity rate for COVID-19 in a long time, couple of weeks, Dr. Ennis, am I correct? I think it was 2% yesterday. That was good news. So to talk with us a little bit more about, you know, COVID-19 and education, let's invite then Dr. Melody Ennis, the Director of Family Health Services, but looking more toward the health side in terms of, you know, what we can do, and certainly appealing to our educators, not just teachers, but all in the education sector, to get vaccinated and ensure that we have some semblance of normalcy coming forward. Dr. Ennis.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. It is indeed our pleasure from the Ministry of Health and Wellness to continue this vaccination program. We started on the 10th of March of this year, and ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased, ecstatic even, at the outturn of persons. But as we recognize the impact of this pandemic on our children, we had in the Ministry of Health and Wellness anecdotally noted the deficits that our children would face. But when we brought that together with this study done by Capri to show the devastation on our children, the boredom of over 60% of them, the overeating, the anxiety, the uncooperativeness that they started to display, it was marked that the teachers, especially those having students with exit exams, had to be a priority for inoculation, because we cannot afford to leave these children behind. And even though we're not leaving them, the catch-up period is so critical and so delicate that in all of our best interest, we may have some challenges. So our teachers started to come out for their vaccines, and we were able, in our blitz that took place, to vaccinate over 7,000 of the teachers. We know that that's just about 40%, maybe a little less than 40% of the population of teachers, but we continue to encourage all of them, especially those having students with exit exams, to make their appointment, because they can get their first dose at this time. And of course, for those who are in line for their second dose, we are encouraging you and reminding you that one dose is not enough. And if you do not get the second dose, then, you know, as we say here in Jamaica, you're gone right back to square one. Because, and of course, you would have muscled up and taken that first jab, and then to make it go to naught, that's just not the way. But more importantly, it is protection that we're seeking. And therefore, you need to get that second dose to ensure that those memory cells are developed, so that once the virus comes into the body, we can shoot it down in short time. So for all of our teachers, please make your appointment for the first dose, and for those for the second dose, come on out. It is critical as we all work together, health, education, to ensure that our children are out come September. Thank you.
I've made it part of my personal commitment to education to assist in mobilizing resources, not public resources now, private resources, to provide some of these schools that are in areas where we well know and understand the economic challenges that the population in these areas would face. Through my foundation, I'm going to give you 30 devices, and they will be given to students at various grades. So you are going to move very rapidly from having 80 kids with devices to now having 120 with devices. So you're moving up. And that's how it is. That's what we have to do. It's incremental steps as a country. But as they say, every mickle make a muckle.
Indeed, every mickle make a muckle. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Prime Minister, of course, doing his part, not just through the Ministry of Education, through his own foundation, his own initiative to ensure that our students receive tablets. The need certainly is a lot, but certainly one by one we'll ensure that each child is provided with a device. You know, earlier Dr. Ennis spoke about the fact that we don't want everything to come to naught, and you must get vaccinated. Take the first and take the second. Very important. We only have the 2-dose at this point. But the Prime Minister and the Minister are very keen on evidence-based decisions. Statistics actually inform what we do. I calculated it for you. It just takes between 10 to 15 seconds of your life to get that injection. Am I correct, Dr. Ennis? Between 10 and 15 seconds. It's like, and it's just a mosquito bite if you feel that, right? Right, Doc? If you feel the mosquito bite. Well, anyways, certainly here with us this afternoon to talk a little bit more about, though, education in the time of COVID and ensuring that our educators, all those in the education field, understand what's going on in the decisions and policy making in this time. We're joined by the Minister of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Fayval Williams. Minister.
Yes, thank you, Naomi. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me recognize the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Honorable Nesta Morgan, our State Minister, our Permanent Secretary Acting, Dr. Grace McLean, Dr. Casson Troop, who is to my left, our Chief Education Officer, and of course, on the platform with us this afternoon, Dr. Melanie Ennis, Director of Family Health Services. Let me begin by commending our teachers, our students, and parents for the resilience and the patience that you've demonstrated through this pandemic since March 10th of last year. We know it has been difficult, but you have stood up to the test, and I want you to know we will get through this together. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, in collaboration with our school leaders, successfully managed the preparation and administration of the Primary Exit Profile PEP6 ability test on May 26, 2021. Preliminary reports that we have is telling us that approximately 33,000 students were present for the exam. In terms of, and all these students did it safely. There was just one situation in which a student was reported to be infected with the coronavirus, and preparations were made for the student to sit the exam safely. Another student was reported to be in the hospital, and as is usual, the staff was deployed to the hospital to support the student in completing the assessment. So all these scripts are in, all the exams are in, they're being checked and graded. We will let you know very soon about the release date, what the weightings of the scores are to be. We're doing that analysis right now. In terms of our CXC exams, plans are in place to support the administration of the exams, which will commence on June 28, 2021. The Overseas Exam Council, as you know, is the agency with the remit to ensure the smooth preparation for and the administration of the CXC exams, as well as the return of exam scripts for marking. They have reported to us that all the centers have been finalized. Presiding examiners have been engaged, trained, and they've deployed the schedule. The schools, through the exam coordinators, continue to liaise with the OEC to ensure on-the-ground readiness, the pickup and return of exam scripts in a timely manner. Just to delve a little bit more into the CSEC, I know there's been a lot of information out there, but we're giving you the definitive information. The exams, as our students and parents are aware, will be in its original format, paper 1, paper 2, and 100% moderation of our school-based assessment. All school-based assessments are to be submitted by June 30th, 2021, after having gotten an additional month for this submission. The exams will begin on June 28th, and they will run through the month of July to July 31st. An additional 2 weeks would have been granted. Students who decided to defer the sitting of the exam to January and May of 2022 would have done so already. And in terms of the numbers that we have, 7,651 students would have decided to defer their CSEC exams. 429 would have deferred their CAPE exams into next year. By now, all students should have gotten the exam topics, and they've been narrowed down more than in the first release of those topics. Plans are in place to have the exam results released by either late September or the first week in October 2021. This was communicated to us by the CXC. CXC as well told us that consideration will be given in the grading process to account for the psychosocial effect of the pandemic on the students. And we do have Dr. Wesley on. If there are additional questions as to exactly what that means, he's here to ask. In terms of City and Guilds exam, approximately 24,000 students are registered for that exam. In terms of, and that exam will begin in August 10th and to 11, 2021. 16,000 students are registered to sit the NCT VET exams, and those are going on this week. Today would be the last day. They were scheduled for June 7 to 11. Our parents and students would have known as well by now of the postponement of PEP 4 and 5. Given that those exams are curriculum-based exams, we decided to have those during the first semester of the next school year, which we're expecting to begin in September. We have started to do the diagnostic tests for our grades 1 to 9 students, and the diagnostic test is to help us to determine the learning loss and learning gaps to be addressed in the upcoming school year. I know there has been some confusion about that. The diagnostic tests will not form a part of the PEP 6 exam results at all. It's exactly what it says. It will help us to determine the learning loss and learning gaps to be addressed in the upcoming school year. Grades 4 to 9 would have already taken their diagnostic test. The last cohort of grades 1 to 3 will be doing theirs June 14 to June 18. We did announce as well the cancellation of the grade 9 achievement test. This had to do with the fact that, again, this is a curriculum-based test, and so we did not think it would have been equitable for us to have that exam this year. We will move those students based on the school that they selected, their home address, the availability of spaces in the high schools, and the grade 9 achievement test placement data by schools. Turning now to vaccination, approximately, and you would have heard Dr. Ennis say this, our number is that approximately 8,000 teachers are already vaccinated, and our plans are in place for others to be vaccinated, and Dr. Ennis will speak more about that and will answer questions on the vaccination. All things on the ground are ready. We've been working with the Ministry of Health and Wellness to ensure that our school grounds are examined and they pass the test for the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and we will continue to work during the summer to ensure that everything is in place for the upcoming school year. So should the Prime Minister give the go-ahead for face-to-face, we don't have to be, hemming and hawing, because we would have spent the time to be ready. And of course, schools have been told to do temperature checks of students to ensure that there are wash stations all around. And in my going around to schools, I am seeing wash stations everywhere in schools. The ministry has ensured that schools continue to get hand sanitizers and other type of equipment to help them to ensure that once the students turn up, they're in a safe environment. And those are the updates that we have coming from the education sector. I look forward to the questions that you may have as we go along this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. A lot to chew on, and I can understand the anxiety of so many of us parents in this entire process. But I think parents can be confident that you're a good captain of the ship and we're navigating quite well. So for those who are online viewing, we ask that you have your questions ready. You can put it in the chat And for those who are on Instagram, we're also streaming on Instagram, but under the post, you may be able to put your questions as well. So we encourage you to put your questions under the chat, and certainly once we get to the question and answer segment, we will be more than happy to take all your questions. We understand the anxieties, we understand what's going on, especially if you have a boy child like me. I can tell you, boy, you know, it takes a lot to get them focused and motivated. So we're here to answer all your questions, Dr. Ennis as well as the Prime Minister and the Minister and those from the Education Ministry. Let's now go to a video ahead of the Prime Minister's presentation.
One tablet or laptop per child. That is the goal. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is on a mission to bridge the digital divide and ensure that no child is left behind. We have made it easy for your child to have access to a device. Log on to oyod.educate.gov.jm. Once you have met the requirements listed, fill out the application form and submit. We will have a device in your child's hands as soon as we can. Every child can learn. Every child must learn.
Indeed, that is a commitment of the entire government. Every child can learn, every child must learn. Ahead of the Most Honorable Andrew Holness becoming Prime Minister, he was the Minister of Education back in a previous dispensation. And certainly a lot of the achievements that we're experiencing in education, he had the brainchild, the tenacity to put those forward. Certainly in the last few months, I believe it was earlier this year, Prime Minister, or late last year, we started the Education Transformation Commission, and that commission certainly is doing work to ensure that we get our education system right-fitted, so to speak, to meet the demands of the fourth industrial revolution. But let me not steal his thunder. The Prime Minister certainly has a lot to say on education and how we navigate this process within COVID-19. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you to my panelists who are with me today, Minister of Education, and our panelists and resource persons online, Minister Morgan in the Ministry of Education. It is indeed an excellent idea by the Ministry of Education, supported by the Ministry of Health, to have this town hall, because it is necessary for us to have conversations with the stakeholders. And the stakeholders in this instance would be, first and foremost, the students, our children, our parents, and our teachers. The general public obviously has an interest, but today I want to speak specifically to the main stakeholders, as I said, the students, the parents, and the teachers. Let me start with the teachers. First, let me thank you for taking the vaccines. And I'm saying it generally. I could be a little bit more specific and say, let me thank those who have taken the vaccine, which amounts to about 40% of the maybe 19,000 teachers that we officially have registered in the system. The level of take-up is not sufficient in my mind to put us on a firm pathway for the return of face-to-face education. I know that there is hesitancy, and indeed, in terms of the organization of the teaching profession and the leadership of the teaching profession, there might be some differences in approach to the vaccines. I want to take the opportunity to appeal to the leaders of the teaching profession and to the teachers themselves that we will not be able to return to face-to-face education with confidence if we do not have a sufficiently high level of teachers vaccinated. In my mind, and I'm not speaking now as a public health professional, Melody is here, she could tell you what that number would be. We have targeted 65% of the population. for us to have herd immunity, but we would like to see upwards of 80% of our teachers vaccinated. Particularly, we would like to see those teachers who are in the vulnerable age range vaccinated. As you would see from the statistics provided for the general population, that the risk rises very rapidly for a fatal event if infected after you have passed 60. So teachers who are closer to 60 or past 60 who are still operating in the system, maybe our principals, some of our senior teachers, we urge you to get vaccinated. If you have comorbidities, and we know that comorbidities are high in the population, particularly as it relates to diabetes, heart conditions, and so forth. So, obesity. So we encourage persons who are predisposed or who are currently suffering from any of these ailments to get vaccinated. Generally, we are encouraging all teachers to get vaccinated. Now, I've been fully vaccinated, and there is a nexus, Melanie and Minister. Well, you have been fully vaccinated. You were first in line to get vaccinated amongst the ministers. You had no hesitancy whatsoever. None at all. But I wanted to point out that there's always been a kind of nexus between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education for vaccination. Always. I remember my time in primary school when, I was never afraid of the vaccine, but I was afraid of the needle. So I would always, when my time came to go to the front of the line, I would go to the back until I got my jab. And we've been doing this. Almost all Jamaicans have had this experience through our primary education system. And many of our teachers who are parents would be the first to insist that their children get vaccinated. And presently, it is the law, it is required for students who are registering in school for the first time that they show their vaccination certificates, their vaccination documents, which would include their first shots and their booster shots. It is a requirement. So I'm not quite understanding of this movement of anti-vaccination when Jamaica has benefited from participating in a full-scale public education campaign and public vaccination campaign. Indeed, we have removed from our population many health threats, many diseases, by virtue of participating in full vaccination campaigns. So, whilst I respect, Melody, I do respect, and Minister, I respect the opinions of persons who may have some hesitancy or some beliefs different from the beliefs I have, and it is a democracy, people are free to have it. But you are not free to in any way destabilize or prevent others from getting vaccines. You're not free to do that. You're not free to disrupt, to discourage others. It is a disservice to the country. We need to attain 65% of the population or more being vaccinated before we can achieve what the scientists call herd immunity, where there is a significant number of the population so vaccinated so that spread becomes difficult or impossible. So I would encourage persons who are hesitant not to prevent others, not to spread misinformation. If that's your view, that's your view. But I would also encourage those who may be undecided, who may be contemplating, to please make the decision to get vaccinated. The government will continue through efforts like this to engage and to provide the information. And you on your own can, in today's world, we live in the information age, you can find the right information to help you to make the decision about vaccination. Aside from that, however, the Minister of Education said, we are preparing for the reopening of face-to-face education, the reopening of school, if the Prime Minister gives the go-ahead. And I want to just place all of that into context. The decision to return to face-to-face will be driven, obviously, by the public health science, but it will also have to be balanced by the social and economic imperatives. The Cabinet of Jamaica, which I lead, takes into consideration all the recommendations that come from the Ministry of Education, from the Ministry of Health, from the Ministry of Finance, and we balance them. Because at the end of the day, we don't want you to survive COVID and die of hunger. That's the stark reality. So we want you to survive COVID and still have your job. We want you to survive COVID and still be educated. So the perspective that we have now at this point in time is that we are looking to a return to face-to-face education in September. This is our thinking at this point in time. Things could change. You could have a third wave. It could. But if things work out for the better, if you get vaccinated, for example, we're projecting that in the month of August we should have some supplies of vaccines that would allow for more persons to get access to vaccines. If, as a result of this press conference, this town hall meeting, if on the next weekend Melody reports that we have 80 to 90% of our teachers vaccinated, then we would be on a good run to ensure that come September we could have the schools reopened. But the Ministry of Education is prepared for that, and they're planning for that, and I want the country to appreciate that we want to go back to face-to-face, but it all depends on how you behave, the decisions you make. So we're preparing for that. The Ministry of Education is ready for that. We want our teachers to be ready for that. And so I really, from the bottom of my heart, appeal to our teachers, please get vaccinated. To our parents, I want to also thank you. I have met with parents just moving around, and whenever we get the chance, I was doing my Read Across Jamaica message, and I had some parents who volunteered their children, and they took about 20 to 30 minutes talking to me about when are we going back to school, when are we going to open the schools. It has been a really difficult time for parents, having to share devices, parents having to be in one Zoom meeting, working from home, and then popping over to the other Zoom meeting to ensure that their children are actually paying attention to the teacher. It's very difficult. It's been very difficult. But for other parents who are without means, it is also painful. They can't help their children. They're just not in a position to give their children any supervision. And it's been very painful. There's a view in the society that teachers have had it very easy. That they're home, they do classes maybe or maybe not. But there are actually teachers who have been affected by not being in the classroom psychologically. And it hurts them seeing their children running up and down on the street, can't be in class. And they question, why is it that they're on the streets anyway, they should be in the classroom. And I've had teachers that I've had to talk to, not counsel, but discuss with them, and explain, because it does hurt them, and they are professionals, and they take their jobs very, very seriously. So I want to thank the parents who have really put out the effort during this difficult time, and to let you know that we are planning for the return of face-to-face school in September, and we want to make it happen. You can help by ensuring that you get vaccinated. That's number one, as parents. And that if you have persons at home who are in the most vulnerable age group or in the vulnerable categories, persons with comorbidities, that you encourage them as well to get vaccinated when it is their turn and when the vaccines are available, because you will have to shield them when children go back to school and they return home. So you have to now start to plan how you would do that within your household. Now, when the virus came into our country in March, the entire population was naive. We were naive on two counts. We were naive, our immune systems, Melody, we just didn't know. Our immune system did not know how to respond. But we were also socially naive. It's the first time we were hearing about social distancing. It's the first time we were, being told to wear a mask. It was really new to us. And we are no longer naive in the sense of our social response. We now know what to do. We know that the wearing of masks work. We know that washing your hands, the ablution works. We know that if you maintain distance and control your gatherings to less than the recommended amount on the DRMA, we know that these things work. So we're no longer naive in that regard. Our immune system, however, is still naive. Make no mistake about it. Only what was the new number? 8% have gotten? Just about 8% would have gotten one dose of the vaccine. So essentially, we're nowhere near our community immunity, if you want to put it that way. So our physical health system, our immune system, is still naive. But our social health system, by now, should be quite attuned to what we need to do. So as parents and as Jamaicans generally, you know what to do. And so you have to start preparing for that. Now, to our kids. So far, the science has shown that the fatal event from infection would be very low. Still, children have died. Government can't take the risk to say, okay, because your numbers are low, you are free to do whatever you want to do. That couldn't be the case. So it is still required of you, when you go back to school, as far as possible and as much as you can, it is in your interest and in the interest of your loved ones and parents at home, that you wear your mask, social distance, hand sanitize, and avoid large gatherings. This is not easy in an education setting. I remember what it was like when I was going to school. At that time, I had 60 students in my class. I don't know how many were in your class, but the numbers are not that. The pupil-teacher ratio is not that high these days. Nowhere near that. But still, playing on the playing field or going to the tuck shop or so, taking the bus. It does require you to be responsible and follow the protocols. The other appeal I would make to our students, especially those who are now about to sit the CAPE and CSEC exams, is that the government and CXC, Wayne Wesley is online, and I'm sure questions will go to him. We are acting in the best interest of the students and the education system as a whole. So we have made the provisions for you to sit the exams. We are aware that some students, by virtue of the disruption of the pandemic and the loss of face-to-face teaching, and we acknowledge up front that online learning, virtual teaching, and other methodologies are not satisfactory replacements for face-to-face teaching. They do come in some instances, for those who have the resources, can come close. But we acknowledge it is not the same thing, and therefore you would be at a disadvantage. Nevertheless, provisions have been made to make adjustments to the exams that would be fair to you. I know there is a massive push, a serious discussion amongst parents and students who have exams to take, that we should not have kept any exams, that we should have abandoned the exams. And I have paid close attention to the debate. We weighed the considerations. And we would face in the education system a very serious problem if we had to contemplate 2 or 3 cohorts sitting the exam at one point. Because whilst we are preparing for the reopening, as I've said, and when I said we are preparing for reopening, I noticed the look that, that the Ministry of Health representative Melody gave me. Because anything could happen. There could be another wave, and then schools may not be allowed to reopen. And then what would happen to the cohort following? And maybe a cohort after that. So the best move would be to allow the cohorts to go through and then support them afterwards. And that is the strategy that we have applied. And then to ensure that the exams are structured in a way that are fair to the students who are sitting in. And as Minister has said, that the considerations have been put in place for the dislocation and the negative impact of the factors that the pandemic would have thrown into the education system. So, I understand the fear, but I appeal to you, give it your best shot. Do the best you can. We understand, and we're going to put in place the measures to support you, not just up to the exam, but even after the exams, to ensure that you are not at a disadvantage as you progress through your education journey. So I think I've said a lot. I hope that it is digested and taken in the way and the spirit that it was meant.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for your synopsis of what's going on and for your wise words. Certainly the students are happy to hear that we're here to support them, especially, as you said, do your best. We're here to support. But I can tell you, sir, that based on the number of persons, parents in particular, doing the happy dance when you said we're looking to return to face in September, let me tell you, parents are doing the happy dance right now. But of course, the government, of course, is making sure that protocols are in place to ensure that. We have lots of questions, so let me just get out of the way and get to a lot of the questions that are being asked. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter on all the handles that we have. Let me start off then, in no particular order. I'm just taking it randomly from each platform. Let's go to Facebook. Georgia McPherson says, oh boy, we always get this question wrong at this time, no matter what. When will PEP results be released?
Okay, I was anticipating that question, Naomi. Our minister just updated that we are in the process now of doing the conditioning of the scripts, which means that we have to go through every single script per child, per school. We have to make sure that the shading was done correctly. We have to make sure that we account for every single child that is registered present on that day. So we are doing all those technical things now. Then we have to move it to scanning to make sure that the data can be in electronic form. Then we have to shift that data to scoring, and then we have to shift it to marking and placement. So we have a number of processes that we have to do now. So as soon as we are able to communicate that data very, very soon, our minister will make that announcement. Just give us some time to go through the technicalities, because we want to make sure that when we announce, the process can stand to scrutiny. We know our parents, they want to see for themselves. Many of our parents over the years, this is not new, would want to request to see the paper themselves, and we have always complied and made those things available. So we are working hard. Just give us some more time to go through the conditioning, to talk with our psychometricians. It's a different year of placement. We have to work out the weighting, and we have to use the psychometricians to allow for those processes to be accurate and equitable and fair. It is not anything that is being done by central ministry. We have outsourced all of these to our consultants. So just give us a few more weeks or so to make some announcements.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Troop. And certainly we will have it in good time before September so that the parents will be able to adjust.
And Minister, I don't know if I want to take the risk, but we will have it before August.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Troop. All right, another one coming from Antonio. I believe Antonio might be on YouTube. But let me just tell you, Antonio Daly says, teachers who have opted not to take the vaccine and who believe they may be at great risk going back to the classroom, will action be taken against those teachers if they refuse to go back to face-to-face?
If the decision is made to go back to face-to-face, that means we have, from the Cabinet with the Ministry of Education and stakeholders, we have decided that the country is at a state where we can go back to face-to-face, then all teachers would be expected to return to the classroom in fulfillment of their contractual and employment obligations. So, if there is a decision to return to the classroom, all teachers would be required so to do. Of course, if there is a medical exemption, that would be treated in the normal course.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I have a related question from someone on Facebook asking what special incentives then will be given to teachers who take the vaccine, like other members of the society. They want an incentive. That's the entire question.
Well, the government has grappled with incentives as to how do we incentivize. We're a democracy, and I want to emphasize that. But the essence of the democracy is that when government policy and laws are in place, we require the reasonable and rational individual to follow it, incentive or no incentive. We have given incentives for more targeted towards a vulnerable age group, to get them to go out and get the vaccines. We are looking at some implied incentives, for example, in how we structure the quarantine process. We have not yet put out any other forms of incentives. The truth is, and let me just level with you, it is in your interest to take the vaccine. It is your interest to take the vaccine. And so we are now using moral suasion. We are now engaging. There's scarcely any public engagement that I have where I do not specify in very clear terms and in encouraging terms the need for all citizens to get vaccinated.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Several questions coming in, so let me just get to all of them, as many as possible. We do have a cutoff time, but let's just get everybody in. Ralph asks, what is government doing about internet access across the country, especially to ensure students have access to the internet?
I'll allow the Minister of Education, who was a former Minister of Science, Energy and Technology, to tell you about our national broadband project.
Okay, so parents and students will be very happy to know that there's an active task force with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, and the Prime Minister's ministry to ensure that we have broadband connectivity across Jamaica, but more specifically, early in the process, we're targeting our schools. So already we have looked at all our schools across Jamaica. We've made the determination as to exactly what's the minimum bandwidth those schools should have, how it's to be managed. Right now, across our schools, it's left up to each individual school to pay their own internet bill and so forth. The new model that we're looking at would have the ministry take a more active role in terms of ensuring that our schools have connectivity. So we're working on that. We have a goal to have the rollout of that before September to as many schools as possible across the system, so that when our students show up, there will be adequate connectivity for them to be able to use in their class or as they move around the school compound. So that's what we've been working on. We know that it's important. Technology is going to remain a part of the educational system. It's going to be a blended approach going forward in terms of having online and the face-to-face as well. And we know it's important that our students develop the 21st century skills that will make them valuable as they enter into the work world or as they go on to higher education. So work is happening now, and we will see the manifestation of that across the system in short order, certainly by the time September rolls around.
Thank you, Minister. Let's head over to YouTube then, and Cecil on YouTube is asking, there's talk of an extension of the school year and possible summer school. What's the position of the ministry?
Sure. Let me say, every Jamaican, I believe, recognizes that our students would have, all of them would have been experiencing some amount of learning loss as you know, we move through the pandemic. They've not been able to be in the face-to-face environment. Many of our students still would not have had connectivity, so they were not able to log on to the online classes. And for those students who had connectivity, they had issues with just the frequency, how many times they've had to, they've been dropped off and having to come on again to the system. Education takes time. Learning takes time. And in order for us to catch up, to have our students catch up to where they were before the pandemic and to move them further, we have to spend more time. And so we are in the planning phases right now for summer. You will hear more about it as we approach. I think in the next couple of weeks, next week, we will unveil exactly what the plans are. Our theme, and I can reveal that now, our theme will be recovering smarter. And it's obviously will be voluntary, but if you want to recover smarter, we'd suggest that you look at what we're offering and what we're coming with for the summer. In terms of extending this school year, by default, it has already been extended because the exams have been pushed into July, into way down, and August. So the school year has already been extended by default. So that's where we are now. We're encouraging our students. Yes, we know, and parents, we know you've been living through the pandemic and we know the hardship and so on, but we have to make all the preparations, and we have to ensure that your education is still accessible, regardless of whether it's summer, regardless of whether it's night or day, and we have the technology. We can scale it up across the system, and we have a responsibility to do so. And again, it's going to be voluntary, but as we say, if you want to recover smarter, we'd encourage you to get involved. Yes.
Thank you so much, Minister. Stephen on Facebook is asking, what does CXE mean when they say they're making the marking will be lenient?
Wesley's online.
I believe Dr. Manning is on. Dr. Manning, would you like to take that one? Or Dr. Wesley? Dr. Wesley?
Are you hearing me?
Wonderful. Is that Dr. Manning?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Dr. Manning, yes. What does CXE mean when you say that you'll make the marking lenient?
Okay, so let me just say that in terms of the fact that COVID-19 is a pandemic, and it is seen as a overall what we call a hardship year. And so CXE has within its policies mechanisms to address or to take into consideration these issues as they exist within the pandemic. Now, from a psychometric perspective, what we would be, Right. From a psychometric perspective, what we normally do is to do an analysis based on the performance of the candidates for the particular subject area. So we look at it and we do the analysis, and then we make the decisions in that context. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, but it is that we have to look at the performance of the candidates and then make a decision where that is concerned. So to put it very simply, you may have candidates performing, you look at candidates' performance on a particular question, for example, and based on what you're seeing in terms of the general performance of the candidates, then we would make a decision from there.
So you're marking on the curve?
No. Okay. We are making a decision. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to use the term marking on the curve, because it is right. There is further analysis that you have to do. And this is a system that we have. Hardship is something that, for example, if a candidate's parent die on the day of the exam, we take that into consideration, because usually we get a report from our local registrar. So we take it into consideration that if it is based on the performance of the other students, this particular candidate is showing that they may have been impacted because of the loss of the parent. So we do the necessary psychometric analysis, and we award the most appropriate grade for that candidate. So it's not something that is, we do it in a systematic way. So I want to let you know that it's something that is technical. All right, so it's not right. So it is that we have to do our necessary psychometric analysis that is for us to make those decisions. Okay, I hope that helps.
Yes.
I just wanted to just make it clear that the actions of CXC in terms of ensuring that they have grades that reflect the situation would not be arbitrary, and that they would apply time-tested and proven scientific ways of evaluating the grades in times of hardship. And so the grades that you will get will be grades that are valid grades, which would also take into consideration the particular situation in which we are.
Thank you, sir. Going back to Facebook, Wendy on Facebook is asking, can you make the Moderna or Pfizer available for teachers instead of the AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson?
You have hesitancy and preference. We would not be able to, at this time, say which vaccines we will have. We already have in train contracts for AstraZeneca, and I believe Johnson & Johnson. Melody, you could take over to say exactly what we have.
So
there are some, but just before you come in, we have heard it being said that the rich countries plan to make available supplies. It could be that you could see flows of Moderna or Pfizer, but we would not want to, give too much hope on that. We would want to be able to say what we have negotiations and contracts firmly for. So go ahead now.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I want to start off by saying that the best vaccine for us to take is a vaccine that is available. And we should recall that all the vaccines that are placed on the WHO's listing for use are certified efficacious and will prevent persons from becoming severely ill, from being hospitalized, and from dying from COVID. I think that is enough incentive for all of us to go out and get vaccinated. Notwithstanding that, we are a part of the COVAX facility, and that entity has committed to providing vaccines for our most vulnerable up to March of next year. And within the COVAX facility, there is a portfolio of vaccines that should become available to persons. And on that list for quarters 3 and 4, July to September and October to December, we are seeing Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca. We're not seeing Moderna just yet, but those are the thoughts for coming. But when we look at who we will be giving the vaccines to, we need to take that global in-depth analysis. So for example, our Pfizer vaccine, which we don't have yet, but Pfizer is the only vaccine at this time that's being offered to children. So, Prime Minister, if we, for example, take Pfizer into Jamaica, we need to look carefully at that cohort of persons that we may want to offer it to. If it is unique and special just for, maybe we want to look at that. But we really have to understand that although there is so much hesitancy across the world, the demand for the vaccines are still much greater than the supply. So what we have here now in Jamaica, we have AstraZeneca, and I am forever a true Jamaican. A bird in the hand, sir, is worth many in the bush. So let us hold on to what we have at this time.
Indeed, take the one that is available. So let's go back to Facebook. The question being asked by Michael Stewart, is there a discussion regarding making the vaccines mandatory, especially for teachers then, given the importance of education?
No discussions at the level of the cabinet to make vaccines mandatory. The notion of mandatory vaccination is not strange or foreign to the Jamaican jurisprudence. For children, it is. And we have laws on our books for that. None so for adults. And it is not, in terms of how we have managed the pandemic, we have not gone down that route. I have faith in the Jamaican people, deep faith, and I know that eventually they will recognize those who are skeptical. They will recognize their duty and do their civic duty for themselves, their family, and their country, and take the vaccines. You know, we are generally very cautious as a people. Something new, we want to see how it works first. But I think that we are seeing how it has worked. We're seeing other countries opening up. We're seeing parties and stage shows and concerts returning to countries that have taken the vaccine. So very soon, I think you're going to see a massive change in the hesitancy when, you know, our Jamaicans recognize and realize that other countries who have taken the vaccines are returning to their normal way of life.
Thank you, Prime Minister. A question on YouTube from Dr. Jeremy Baldwin. Last year we were told that schools should look to employ additional teachers. Are we looking to hire more teachers this year? Dr. Troop is taking that one.
Well, as it relates to the staffing of our school, that is very, very critical to the support that we want to provide for our students. As the Prime Minister indicated, our hope is to have face-to-face resumption. And once we have that directive from our cabinet, we will analyze what that looks like on the ground. So our regional directors now are having their consultations in their regions with their schools to do their planning. So last year this time, whilst we were dealing with the pandemic, our schools would have put together different scenarios of how schools can operate. Right now, our regional directors are taking our principals through that process again, where we will look at what school will look like with a full face-to-face resumption, what school could look like with a hybrid model, where we will have to rotate our students from time to time, and what school could look like if we have to continue in the full remote situation. So all of that planning is taking place now, and it could mean that we need additional support. Our ministry has been providing that over the period, and we will continue to provide that. But the data on the ground will dictate what happens in each school. So the analysis is taking place as we speak.
Evidence-driven decisions being made. Thank you, Dr. Troop. Chelsea on Facebook is asking, and I suspect this is for Dr. Ennis, can the vaccines be available in health departments and health centers close to where you live?
Indeed, the vaccines are, for the most part, being offered in the health centers close to where you reside. We do have to recognize, though, that our routine services must continue, and we are operating in the COVID environment, and as such, we want to manage the crowd. So we have opted in some instances to take it out of the health centers so that, you know, more persons can be vaccinated and we can continue with our routine services. But as we continue with the program, we'll be seeing more and more vaccination sites in our facilities, and we just need to look out for the times, because we may need to adjust the times so that it may be a little later in the afternoon or earlier in the morning, so that our routine services can continue and not be impacted by the vaccination process.
Thank you, Doc. On YouTube, again, Vanessa is asking, and this is education now, will we have reduced class sizes come September in order to maintain social distancing?
It all depends, right? It all depends on, you know, how the numbers, the COVID numbers develop. You could have a scenario in which some of our students are in the face-to-face mode, others are at home, and we rotate. That way, it all depends.
All right.
I think you should point out, that already you have a certain percentage of schools in the education system where the class size would be very low because the school population is very low. And indeed, there are several schools where the population is so low that you could reallocate to take advantage of the existing space. So the decisions that have to be made regarding more teachers or class sizes, they are really very school specific and not general decisions. It's very much school specific. So the school leaders themselves would play a great role in informing the Ministry of Education their resource needs, and then the ministry would then respond.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Minister. We have about 9 minutes to 3 o'clock. Let's see how many we can get in 9 minutes in terms of questions. Coming from Diane on YouTube, she's asking, will face-to-face begin on Monday, June 14 for all grades 4 and 5 students?
I feel your pain. I understand. I understand.
Okay, as it relates to face-to-face, we currently have offered the opportunity for our grades 4 and 5 boys and girls to be experiencing face-to-face. I think we started that on May 31st. So we had our grade 6 students in preparation for the PEP exams, and they have done so. They went on their midterm break, and then we asked that the grade 6 students revert to remote experience and allow for the grades 5 and the grades 4 students to have the opportunity of the face-to-face as they prepare for the PEP in the first semester. So yes, they do have that opportunity. Now we have guided our schools to make sure that we observe the physical distancing, so they may not have all the students in at all times, because we still have to maintain the safety protocols. We cannot compromise that, so we allow our principals to do the organization on the ground, but they do have the opportunity to be in school for face-to-face instructions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Troop. Annalise on Facebook is asking, what will be put in place to help students to catch up to pass their exams? And I think she's speaking primarily of PEP students who would have missed the grades 4 and 5 test for PEP.
Okay, for the semester to come?
Yes.
Okay, so Minister alluded to earlier our somewhat extension of the school year in the form of our summer school. I know some persons have said to us that they are not in support of that, but from what our minister would have indicated, the education system has a responsibility to do every single thing, every possible strategy that can be available to support students' learning. We will have to try that, and we want to make sure that our boys and girls have that opportunity. So come very soon, as school ends officially the 2nd of July. So following week, right after the 2nd of July, we will start the engagement of our boys and girls in our summer school interface using our hybrid model. We are going to be spending the next couple of weeks finding those students that have disengaged. You would have heard our minister talking about that 120,000 persons missing out of our schools. Those are the persons we are trying to find, and the opportunity is now available. Now that we are going to close school fully, now we have the physical space to bring back these students in to work with our service providers. We are going to be prioritizing. We have no other option but to try every single learning opportunity to reach our boys and girls.
Thank you, Dr. Troop. Denise is asking, are there plans to sensitize or train parents on accessing and using the various platforms employed in the teaching of their children?
Yes. I think we have Casey Akar online. Naomi, perhaps we want to bounce that to her. But we do have opportunities. Casey?
We have partners.
I believe she's unmuting.
I am on mute.
Yes, you can go ahead now. We're
Thank you. So we have partnered with the Jamaica Teaching Council. We actually have had training sessions where our parents have learned how to access Google Suite, and I'm sure we will continue that process. We're certainly open to empowering as many of our parents as possible.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we have a lot more health department. To the Minister of Education, it's been proven that students with their videos on have shown positive learning than those with videos off. Will you make videos on during, it's an kind of quirky but interesting and very important question for a lot of parents actually. Will you make it mandatory for all students to have their videos on? And this is from Elise.
Right. So I don't know that we can make it mandatory. We're in an environment in which not all students have adequate connectivity or bandwidth. I don't know that we can tell the students they have to. Maybe at the beginning of the class, the teacher can say, please just check in, let us see you, see that you're there. But to literally command them to always have their videos on, I don't think that's going to always be possible.
But we do endorse it.
Yes. We endorse it.
It makes sense that students who are engaged with their video on would have to be more focused than those off. But we could recommend it, but as the minister said, it would be almost impossible to mandate it.
4 minutes to go. Carrie on YouTube is asking the health professionals, will there be another blitz and when?
So our next blitz is actually this Saturday and Sunday. It is primarily though for persons who would have received their first dose on the 3rd and 9th of April. So we would have called those persons to come out to the National Arena, the Greater Portmore Health Center, the Anglican Church in St. Catherine, and all other sites that will be open across the island, primarily for the second dose. But remember the categories we spoke of, and we're at education, so it must be the teachers and those doing, having students doing their exit exams. Please, you can make your appointment and we squeeze you in over this weekend to get your first dose.
All right, wonderful news. We have a couple more questions. It is 3 minutes to 3 o'clock. I do know that or certainly our panelists do have other engagements, but let's try and get as many as possible in. I have another one for you. Is priority being given to deep rural communities and schools for internet connectivity for September? That's from Novlet.
Right, absolutely. We would have already started to look at, to prioritize our schools. Those that do not will be the first. I know that we've been using the satellite technology as a fill in the gap for our schools, and we will probably continue to do that until we extend, our fiber into those schools. So yes, for sure, we have a strong focus on the rural schools to ensure that they are ready, they're connected as well.
Thank you, Minister. Another question for you. In September, when school is, and again, parents are celebrating, is likely for now to be open face-to-face, will parents also be getting the option to do face-to-face or online, or will everybody have to go face-to-face? To have their child attend face-to-face, or will they... I beg your pardon, let me go again. So the parent is asking, in September, when they're likely to have face-to-face resumption of school, will the parents have the option of being able to send the child to school face-to-face or online?
So again, it's going to depend, as you heard the Prime Minister pointed out earlier, some of our schools have enrollment that are significantly below their capacity. In that case, all students would be required to be in the face-to-face mode. There are other schools that have enrollments in excess of their capacity. For those schools, they may still have to continue to use a blended approach. So across the system at each school, it might not be the same thing, just depending on their enrollment, the capacity that the school has to work with in order to be able to do the social distancing and ensure that we don't have, the violation of those protocols.
Thank you, Minister. Again, so we're here to relieve some of the anxieties for parents, and I do know that some have hybrid questions that may have been answered already, but I'll just ask some so that we can, again, allay some of the anxiety and fear. We have a question here. Will grade 6 students be expected to sit the grade 5 performance task, grade 6 performance task, curriculum-based tests, and ability tests in the upcoming school year?
Okay. I think that question is being asked in light of the fact that we would have indicated the postponement of the current grade 5 PT. So our technical officers in the student assessment unit, they are currently reviewing the design of the assessment for September, for the new school year. Going forward, we would have looked at several options. We have not yet presented them to our minister, so I wouldn't be able to give you a directive on that matter now. But there are several scenarios that are being explored. One, if we are to look at, for the grade 6 lineup of assessment, possibly if we have the PT in the first semester of the new school year, then perhaps we would remove, Minister, one of the pieces of the assessment in the second part of the school year for the grade 6ers, because we are aware that they would have had several pieces of assessment to do. So our minister would have asked us to create some scenarios to see what is equitable, what is fair, what is valid and reliable for our boys and girls. So I'm going to ask our parents to just give us some time. We are looking to see what the suite would look like, how we could rearrange in light of the timelines for the different exams for the different year groups. So it's a technical process, but I can assure you we are going to make it fair and balanced for our boys and girls.
Thank you, Dr. Troop. We'll wrap in about 5 minutes. Let's get this one in. What's being done to engage the teachers?
Well, for the summer, I don't think our director for our Jamaica Teaching Council is online, but there is a suite that will be rolled out very soon for teachers that we call our empowerment, professional development and empowerment sessions. We know that the Jamaica Teaching Council has the remit for professional development for our teachers. So you should see in very short order, just pay attention to the media, where we will be launching the different activities looking at the LMS again, where we have to retool our teachers. There is the program Return to Happiness, where our teachers will be looking at the psychosocial impact of the pandemic on the teacher, and also to build the teacher's capacity to assist the students when they return, because we cannot forget that component. There are several aspects of the professional development that we'll be looking at. Common planning time, how do we put that planning structure within our schools to treat with reflective learning for our teachers? How do we come together as teachers to talk about what we do in the classroom, how we could make it better in the classroom? So that's a major part of the summer program, plus a number of other activities designed from consultations with our principals and looking at the current situation for our back to school. So just look out for the Jamaica Teaching Council website, and we will be sending out our bulletins as well. A number of programs have been put together for our teachers.
Specific, though, to the vaccination initiative and sensitization, is there anything in particular that's being done to target teachers to ensure that they have a better understanding so that they can get vaccinated?
Yes, Naomi, we have done a series of sensitization sessions similar to this with our teachers. We went live. We had the experts of the Ministry of Health with us, going through a total comprehensive presentation as to what made the vaccine, how it came together, the process that it went through to determine efficacy. All of that happened. And then we did some regional sessions again with our teachers. Then we created blitz sites within our schools, within our local communities. We created a schedule in consultation with the Ministry of Health. We sent that out through our bulletins. We had the Ministry of Health team working with the regions again, sensitizing at the school level, sensitizing at the community level. We have done a series, and we continue to do so, making sure that our teachers are aware, they are encouraged. As the Prime Minister said, we don't have any plans now to mandate, but we encourage our teachers. We know you love the boys and girls. We know you want to be back in the school system. We know you want to be safe, so we are encouraging all our teachers. Take the opportunity that is available to get vaccinated.
Thank you, Dr. Troop. In scanning through the questions, some of the comments, a question being posed: what's being done to address the incidence of rape of our children?
So at the ministry, we do have the CPFSA, Child Protection and Family Services Agency, and I know Ms. Gage Gray is online as well. That's the agency to which all the reports for child abuse comes. It is very sad. Even though we're seeing a reduction in the numbers, we still have a lot of cases that come in on a month-by-month basis. I think the numbers where we are now is about 800 reports of child abuse that comes into the CPFSA on a monthly basis. So as soon as these reports come in, the team would be dispatched to go physically to the family, for the team to sit with the family to find out what the situation is, to provide them with psychosocial support. If there's medical assistance needed for the child, that would happen as well. And there would be follow-up happening with the child. What we would like to put in place as well would be an early warning system. So instead of just reacting to a report that comes in, we are working on deciding what is it that can tell us that something has started to go wrong in the life of a child. So we're looking at ensuring that we are able to get school attendance data almost on a real-time basis from our schools, because that would inform us as well. You know, if a child is absent from school, we want to ensure that whatever the teacher notices in the classroom, that is captured about that child. And we're looking at some other variables that we could put together to give us a sense of you know, that something is not quite right here and it needs to be investigated. So that's where we are right now. The numbers are still too high in terms of the reports that we get in about child abuse, but whenever they come in, there is a process that is activated to ensure. And case in point, you might have seen the video that went around with this little boy talking about, even though it's not, well, you could consider it mental abuse actually, because an adult filmed it and put it up on social media. But right away, CPFSA went out, put out a notice, does anybody know where this child lives? And they found out, they went there, they had counseling with the family, and they're following up to ensure that things return to normal as best as possible.
Thank you, Minister. I think the general point is that the care and protection of our children really resides with parents, but also with the vigilance of our community members. If you see something, say something. It's very, very important, especially when we ensure that there is a zero tolerance against abuse of our children, indeed.
Very quickly, to support what the Minister is saying, and since we're talking about education, and we have moved much of our education to online, and during the pandemic, most of our children have been kept at home, and their entertainment and their mental development has been, in many instances, farmed out to a device or a computer. And they are interacting digitally and virtually without much parental oversight. What they decide to consume on the internet is not oftentimes scrutinized by the parents, and they are seeing behaviors, they are being exposed to cultures, they are being exposed to certain kinds of behavior, certain ways of thinking that are different to our culture, different to our expectations, and exposing our children without context. And you're seeing that being reflected and modeled in the behavior of our children, and you're seeing it coming out in sexual ways, in certain perversions coming out, and certain deviant behavior coming out. And you're seeing it expressed as well through violence and aggression. And so whilst we are operating more on an online environment, parents need to exercise greater caution, greater scrutiny, and to help their children navigate this whole new world of information. Otherwise, you're going to see a carry-on into the society where they take behaviors that they see on screen, that they hear in music or other forms of information and entertainment that they will get, and they will model that information in action and behavior with how they relate to their parents, how they relate to their teachers, how they interact with themselves, and then that just starts to cascade right throughout the society. So we have to be very vigilant as parents during this time when we are relying on information through the internet.
Critical as we navigate through COVID-19 and ensuring that our children, our students are kept safe and certainly continuing the education system. We're out of time. It's 10 minutes past 3 o'clock. May I then invite Minister Fayval Williams with some closing remarks, and then, of course, followed by the Prime Minister to close it all up for us. Minister.
Sure, thank you. I want to say to our parents and students, again, that and our teachers, that we understand the difficulties of the times in which we're living. The ministry, I know since, has been doing all it can to provide the support for our parents or teachers or students, to provide that support in whatever way we can. We know that you are expecting a lot from us, and we will rise to that occasion. We will always ensure that our students are in a safe environment. We will manage as best as we can to provide to provide the curriculum, to provide the resources, physical or otherwise, for our children. Our priority is to ensure that when our children exit the education sector, that they are high-performing students. That is what we would like to see, and that they come out of the education sector not only with education, but they come out with good character as well. That is an emphasis that's going to be more so as we start back in the new school year, to help our children understand what's the difference between good and bad, right and wrong, what it means to interact properly with their teachers, with their peers, in their communities, and so on. So we believe this upcoming school year will be a new one, a different one, and we're asking you to come along with us and help us to support your students in the new school year coming up.
Thank you so much, Minister. Of course, the theme, recovering smarter and stronger. Thank you for that, as we have the buy-in from parents, students, and all stakeholders in the education sector. And now, Prime Minister, a note to everyone watching, too, that the Prime Minister leads by example. He keeps his mask on, whether in meetings face-to-face, and there are very few these days, and with online meetings. And as a mark of just setting that example, sir, you keep your mask on at all engagements. Thank you so much for that. Sir, your closing remarks.
Thank you, Naomi. Teachers are special. Teachers have a particularly important civic role. Teachers are leaders. They are academic leaders, but they are also civic leaders. And to a great extent, they are moral leaders. So their role in the development of society, in guiding our children, is so important. You cannot overemphasize the importance of teachers. So what teachers do reflects the ethos of the society, it reflects the moral standing of the society, it reflects the civic growth of the society. And so if teachers are hesitant, if teachers are reluctant, if teachers are in such a way that they reject vaccination, then you can imagine the impact that that would have on our children and their views of vaccination and generally throughout the society. So teachers have the moral, civic, and the academic role to lead in vaccination. And I'm appealing to our teachers to fulfill that role, to take the lead and show the nation that we can all get vaccinated. And the quicker we get vaccinated, it is the quicker that we return to normalcy. We need you back in the classroom. Our children need you back in the classroom. The country requires this. The level of socio-emotional intelligence, the level of skills that we have, where we are in terms of the value for education spend, it is of really great concern as to whether or not Jamaica will be able to properly maneuver and articulate the new world that is fast approaching us. Your role in this is critical. The pandemic has set us back, but we cannot afford to stay back because of our fears and reluctance and skepticism. As teachers, your job, your profession relies on science. It relies on evidence. It relies on reason and rationality. And therefore, I urge you to use the important tenets of your profession, the teaching profession, and do the right thing and get vaccinated.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, good point to end on. Do the right thing and get vaccinated. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us online. Thank you to the Chief Education Officer acting in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Kassan Troop. Also, Dr. Melody Ennis from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Honorable Fayval Williams, the Minister of Education, Youth and Information, and of course, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. This has been the Town Hall, virtual Town Hall on vaccine sensitization for the education system. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
We want to go back to school. We miss seeing our teachers and our friends. We need more schools to reopen. But in order for us to go back, everyone has to play their part. Prevent community spread by wearing your mask, washing your hands, and sanitizing as often as you can. Schools won't reopen unless the community is following all safety measures. Face-to-face learning for all schools is what the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information hopes to achieve soon. So do your part. Let's send the kids back into the classroom. Every child can learn. Every child must learn.